The presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump took place last night on ABC, and it's water cooler conversation. There's no doubt about that. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody has an opinion. We talked about it a little bit yesterday on the show. I said that my hope was for the limited number of people whose vote is still undecided at this point. I wanted them to get a policy contrast between the candidates. Is that too much to ask in 2024? Everything is about image. Everything is about personality. Everything is about feelings. Everything is about sound bites. What happened to good old-fashioned policy? What are these candidates going to try to implement, and how will it affect my life? How will it affect my family's life? How will it affect my children's lives? I wanted those people. How many people are still obtainable at this point? 10%? Maybe? Because I said yesterday on this show, if you are a Donald Trump supporter, there was very likely nothing you were going to hear last night that could have changed your mind about your vote. And by the same token, if you are a Kamala Harris supporter, there is an exceedingly low chance that you were going to hear anything from Donald Trump that was going to change your mind about your vote. But there are a select number of Americans who don't fit into either one of those camps, even in these polarized times that we're living in. I wanted those people to get a policy contrast. I don't think that they got it last night necessarily. ABC, David Muir and Lindsay Davis were the moderators. And the complaint that is being served up today widely on social media, we were hearing it last night after the debate as well, is that the moderation was not sterling. President Trump was fact-checked numerous times during the debate in real time by the moderators. I believe 5 times. Vice President Kamala Harris fact-checked, not at all. Now, here's where I come from on that particular topic. I'm a grown-ass adult man. I've been watching American politics my entire life. Hell, I've got a degree in government. It's just a bachelor's, so I'll slow my roll. But I've got a degree in government. I've been paying attention to this shit my entire life. I skipped high school one time to go see Michael Dukakis on Western Kentucky University's campus. My world civilization teacher, Gary Stevens, for the rest of the semester, whenever I skipped school, which was frequently, would ask me if I was having tea with Dukakis. I was 17 years old. I couldn't even vote yet. I was skipping school to go see Michael Dukakis. I interviewed him years later. He's a nice fucking guy, actually, Mike Dukakis. Now, having said that, I got a little bit of background in politics. I expect all presidential candidates to be full of shit. All of them. There's some people who labor under the misapprehension in this society that the only people who are full of shit is the party that they don't identify with. Well, I hate to be the bearer of reality, but every politician is full of shit. To some extent. Mr. Smith went to Washington, Jimmy Stewart. That was a movie. They're all full of shit. To some extent. Some are worse than others, I grant you. But I expect that. What I need is a media that holds the candidates, no matter who they are, to accountability. Both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris last night, in my opinion, said numerous factually untrue things. But I expect that. I'm a grown-up. I don't think that they're both going to go on TV and just say unfiltered truth. It would be a first in the history of fucking politics. Let's be honest. I used to expect the media, however, to call bullshit on bullshit. And they did with various things that Donald Trump said. Kamala Harris, they did not. Look at the scoreboard. Look at the scoreboard. Donald Trump being fact corrected in real time. Kamala Harris, it did not happen. Let's go to some sound from last night that illustrates this point.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community. The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond here. President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges.
All right, that's all good and well. That's all good and well. Moderators, you want to play that role? You want to call BS in real time? Do it. Please, by all means, do it. I don't know what Trump was talking about with the dogs. I haven't even heard an allegation that somebody was eating a dog, Haitian immigrants eating dogs, or whatever it is that he's saying. Call him on that. Call him on anything that he says that's factually untrue. I'm all for it. Now, let's take a look at what happened with Kamala Harris and these moderators, and let's see if they had the same zest and zeal when Kamala had some things come out of her mouth last night that were also not true.
The detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. If Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. The candidate has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking.
All right. She knew that what she was saying in most, if not all of those cases, was not factually accurate. I didn't hear from David Muir or Lindsey Davis on any of those comments. I think no matter what team you're rooting for, or even if you're just watching a game on TV and you don't have a rooting interest, you deserve to have a game that is refereed or umpired down the middle. That's all you're looking for from a debate moderator. And if you're going to interrupt one person, if you're going to editorialize one person in real time, you got to do it for both, or you're going to get criticism for that, and you're going to deserve it, as I believe that these moderators do. It just is what it is. Donald Trump said stuff last night that wasn't true. He got fact-checked in real time. More power to you. Do it, please. But do it for both candidates, not one. The bloodbath reference, for instance, he was talking about the auto industry and tariffs. He meant an economic bloodbath. Look at the context of the comments. Please, you don't have to like Donald Trump. As I've said, I've voted against Donald Trump twice. Okay? I've gone out and cast a vote against him 2 times. He got elected over my objection, and I was one of the people that voted him out. Okay? But he was not saying there was going to be a bloodbath of people dying in the streets if he didn't get what he wanted. Some sort of Insurrection 2 or whatever that they're trying to characterize it as. Charlottesville, when he said that there were very fine people on both sides, I believe for a long time that that's what he meant, because that's what the media kept reporting. But if you look at the entire transcript of comments he made on that day, he specifically said that he totally condemned the neo-Nazis and the white supremacists. And he clarified that he was not speaking about them. Facts matter. Whether you like him or not, you may still think he's the worst son of a bitch that you've ever seen. But that's just simply not what he said. He was not calling the white supremacists very fine people, and you don't have to take my word for it. Go look at the full transcript of what was said. All I want is the media to report the facts. Why didn't I know that in 2017? Why did it take several years for me to understand that he actually wasn't doing that? Because I believed it. The media has a very important role to play in how people understand things, and all I want is for the media to call it down the middle. It's really all I want, and I think that the American people deserve that. As far as the performance of the candidates themselves, I think the reviews of Kamala Harris's performance by and large are positive. She looked a little nervous perhaps at the outset, but she definitely settled in. As the debate went on, you could see her gaining confidence. I believe that she probably met or exceeded most expectations. Donald Trump's performance, on the other hand, is being criticized as undisciplined, which probably not a surprise, right? We've seen enough Donald Trump. I told Ronnie T-Shirts yesterday, flip a coin on what Donald Trump's going to do, because when he gets out there, you just don't know. He had his moments. He had some good one-liners. He had some effective rhetorical moments. He also wandered, meandered around, got taken off a point, and at one point got led into a pissing contest about the size of his rallies. She definitely pushed his buttons effectively a couple of times, and by this point in his political career, he really has to be more disciplined than to take that bait. He really does. My pet issue, I think the most important issue in American society today, one man's opinion, is free speech, the First Amendment. We've seen, and I've talked about on this program, what's going on in England, what's going on in Canada, Scotland, etc. And I see the path that we're on. And look, as I've said many times, I have considered myself a classical liberal for most of my life. I grew up in a red state voting blue. And one of the reasons that I identified as a Democrat and as a liberal for most of my life is I believe that that was the side that was sticking up for the First Amendment most strongly, and anti-censorship. The idea that you ought to be able to say unpopular things. You ought to be able to say things that are controversial. Because freedom means a marketplace of ideas, and may the best ideas rise like cream to the surface. That's been my issue, and I'll be honest with you, I don't care who the candidate is. They can have a D after their name, they can have an R after their name, they can have an I after their name, they can have an L after their name. If, God forbid, a libertarian candidate ever got in a position of strength, I am in favor of free speech. No question about it. Not one question about free speech. Brazil and what has happened over there, the banning of X, nothing said about that. The march towards censorship that we're seeing in other countries, nothing said about that. Mark Zuckerberg recently saying that Meta was pressured by the Biden White House to censor COVID-19 related information from the Facebook platform. No question about that. These things were not mentioned at all. Where's the media? Where's the journalism? Disappointing performance by ABC last night, in my opinion. Kamala Harris, the winner of the night. Donald Trump, second place. ABC bringing up the rear with the quality of moderation, in my opinion. And I will bring in now the international streaming star, live and in living color from Nashville, Tennessee. Ronnie T-Shirts joins me. Ronnie, I know that you were watching this debate with great interest last night. Give me your thoughts.
So, I agree with pretty much everything that you say. I do think you had a glaring omission on something that she said that was factually incorrect. I'm going to be paraphrasing here. I probably have the wrong word. So if I get fact checked, I'll probably, people will come at me and say, that's not what she said. But she basically said that if Trump becomes the president, he'll nullify, are you ready for this, Ricky? The Constitution. Come on. So he says that he heard that dogs are being eaten in Springfield, Ohio, and they jumped all over his ass for it, as they probably should. But she said that he's going to nullify the Constitution. It's not even possible, Ricky. And they didn't say a freaking word about it. So that was, I had a lot of issues with what happened last night. That was the biggest one. Is it was just, it was absolute home field advantage. The refs were on her side. The clock operator was on her side. He went into an opposing field. Now, that being said, I think he could have done a better job. You and I spoke before the show, and we had a little bit of a chat about this. And I told you, if I had been Donald Trump, that first question when I believe it was Muir asked Harris, do you believe that the Americans are better off now than they were 4 years ago? My first thought was, oh my gosh, this is going to be fair. Like they're asking hard. They're going to ask her a hard question. She literally didn't answer the question. She didn't even come close to answering the question. And then she said something about, I was raised middle class, blah, blah. I don't even know what she said because I was so enraged that she wouldn't answer the question. So they throw it to Trump for his response. If I was Trump, I would have looked at Muir and I would have looked at Harris and I would have said, I'm not going to answer another question the rest of this debate until she answers the question that you just asked her. She can have my time to actually answer the question, and then I would have just been quiet. So other opportunities, she made the absolute such a silly, lazy cliche for her side that the events on January 6th were the worst atrocities on American soil since the Civil War. And she said that literally 12 hours before the 23rd anniversary of 9/11, and Trump didn't say anything. He literally could have said, you do know that the anniversary of 9/11 is tomorrow, don't you? So he could have, like you said, discipline. I think he lacked some discipline last night, and he had some opportunities that he could have, I guess, nullified how egregious the home field advantage was for her, and he didn't take it. I will say, and I'm actually really shocked at this. So did it register with you at the end of the debate? They gave each one an opportunity for a closing statement. I was shocked that they had her go first and let him have the second one. Like he had the last say.
It was a coin flip.
Oh, it was.
That's decided by a coin flip. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for educating me there. I thought that his closing statement was probably his best moment of the night, which I guess if he's going to have the best moment of the night, it's the last thing you do, right? Like I thought he was spot on when he said, you say you're going to do all these things when you're president. You can just literally go to the White House in the morning and just do them now. So I thought it was his best moment.
Well, there's a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking going on this program and everywhere else around America. I did think it was interesting that there really wasn't any sort of investigative question about how Joe Biden was tossed to the curb and how we should feel about that. Nothing about the assassination attempt. Trump mentioned it briefly in one of his answers. And, that was a pretty big event. I feel like that was an omission as well. But, we can pick this thing apart all day long probably, but nobody wants that, including me. I think I've had about enough of it myself. So let's wash this down by looking at the poll of the day. We saw some things last night that were stupid, that weren't purporting themselves to be stupid. This poll makes absolutely no bones about the fact that we're being stupid on purpose. And so let's take a look at the options that have been afforded the American public today, Ron. And we've got horse, of course, a great trick shot. Did you have any horse trick shots, Ron, that you could reliably go to?
I liked bouncing the ball on the ground, banking it off the backboard. So kind of a layup, but you bounce it off the ground first.
And you had to call bank on that as well?
I don't remember. Probably. I mean, it's really hard. It's really hard to do it without banking it.
Call and bank is always a good move if you can do that in horse. We've got Yacht Rock. I don't think there's any question which direction I'm going in today's poll. I know that the Yacht Rock playlist consultant is going to be watching this with great interest. One of my favorite Super 70s followers. You got Mean Joe Green, probably the greatest defensive player of the 1970s in the NFL. And then that old reliable Pop-Tarts as the fourth option. Before producer Tim makes his pick, Ron, can we get a prediction? The organist has halted.
Yeah, it seems pretty even to me. I'll tell you, as much as I love a nice frosted brown sugar Pop-Tart, and I mean I love those, I went with horse.
Well, I'm going to go with Yacht Rock. So let's turn it over to producer Tim, who on a regular basis has his finger on the pulse of America. He's also voting for horse. And
the most even poll ever.
What are the results? I can't see it because I've got stuff pinned to my screen.
All right, you ready? All right, horse, 24.8%. Yacht Rock, 28.7%. Mean Joe Green, 26.1%. And Pop-Tarts, 20.4%. It's your closest one yet.
Look at that. I may have just painted my fucking masterpiece here. We need a little bit more out of Pop-Tarts. Can somebody share this on a breakfast pastry enthusiast page so that we can get a surge of votes for Pop-Tarts? I am a frosted strawberry, sir.
Okay. And then
frosted strawberry Pop-Tarts.
And then what about your favorite Yacht Rock artist?
I think the greatest of all time is Michael McDonald. Because he's worked with Kenny Loggins, he's worked with Christopher Cross, he's done his own stuff. I think Michael McDonald may be the greatest because he can play so many different positions for you, Ronnie. But I like Steely Dan as well. Maybe Steely Dan is actually my favorite.
What about a song? Do you have a song that when you hear Yacht Rock, you're like, my number one Yacht Rock song is
Ride Like the Wind, baby. Christopher Cross with Michael McDonald on backing vocals. I tweeted one time that if you've never sang Ride Like the Wind while you're driving your car or in the shower while accompanying yourself with your own overly enthusiastic Michael McDonald backing vocals. And you know what I'm talking about, because Christopher Cross is like, I've got such a long way to go. And then Michael McDonald's like, such a long way to go. That's my Michael McDonald. I've done that in the car and in the shower innumerable times. And I tweeted that one time, and Christopher Cross, the great Christopher Cross, responded and said, I'd love to hear you do it, Ricky. So the offer's on the table. Christopher Cross, I know that you still tour this great country. If you ever want me to get up on stage with you and provide the Michael McDonald backing vocals, I'm putting that's a blank check that you have, Christopher Cross, who is a friend of Super 70 Sports.
Well, I'm just glad.
There you have it.
I'm just glad that you didn't goad him into a fight like you did Duran Duran. Nobody needs you.
Yeah, Duran Duran, I will kick their asses. I will kick their candy asses. You want some, Nick Rhodes? Do you step out from behind the keyboard, motherfucker? Because we can go right now, Nick Rhodes. The WNBA, Ron. There's bickering in the WNBA. I know that's hard to believe. The WNBA commissioner, Kathy Engelbert, issued some statements. She was on a program and asked some questions about the drama, the rivalry aspect of this season that we've seen. Let's take a look at what Commissioner Kathy Engelbert had to say very recently.
One thing that's great about the league right now, we do sit at this intersection of culture and sport and fashion and music. Like the WNBA players are really looked at now as kind of cultural icons.
True.
And when you have that, you have a lot of attention on you. There's no more apathy. Everybody cares. It is a little that Bird Magic moment, if you recall, from 1979 when those two rookies came in from a big college rivalry, one white, one black. And so we have that moment with these two. But the one thing I know about sports, you need rivalry. That's what makes people watch. They want to watch games of consequence between rivals. They don't want everybody being nice to one another. So the social media is different today than it was in 1979 when it didn't exist. But, I always tell the players, I was told a long time ago, if someone's typing something in and you wouldn't ask their advice, ignore it. So it's a balance, but certainly from a marketing dollars, but corporate partners are stepping up to endorse these players much more so than they were 5 years ago because they see the benefit of having women and diverse women representing their brand.
I agree. Rivalries are good. Manning and Brady, the prime one among them.
So I think the question that she received, Ron, was sort of wanting her to comment on the nastier, more vitriolic aspects, the toxic nature, if you will, that some are talking about in terms of negativity that may include racism, homophobia, et cetera, and the commissioner elected, in the opinion at least of the WNBA Players Association who responded, they were disappointed with her comment. The commissioner elected to talk about rivalry, about how there's no more apathy in terms of interest in the product. She compared it to the Larry and Magic rivalry and tried to keep it primarily on the court. And I think that they were wanting her to go into a discussion of these other elements. And the WNBA Players Association apparently agrees that they feel that the commissioner sidestepped the question. Your thoughts, Ronnie, on this matter?
That's interesting because it feels like the NBA went all, social justice, 3 or 4 years ago? And it felt like it really hurt the brand because people were like, I'm tuning in to watch basketball. I am not tuning in for all this other stuff. And it seems like it hurt their ratings and it hurt their brand. So feels like she's kind of looking at what the NBA did and said, I'm not going to make the same mistake. So I'm not quite sure why the Players Association wants the focus to be on that because the little bit of interest I have in the WNBA, which is Caitlin Clark, it's just going to make me even less likely to watch or be interested in if all I'm hearing about is off the court stuff. Did I take that?
Well,
did I interpret that the right way?
First of all, racism, bigotry, that should all be absolutely condemned. There's no room for that. There's no room for racism in sports. There's no room for racism in society. There's no room for people being picked at, goaded, bullied because of their sexual orientation, etc.
No.
So with that being said, I think every person of any sort of conscience would agree with those statements. I think from the commissioner's point of view, she's trying to grow the game, and her job is to, I think, look at things more positively and look at things more through the lens of how can I promote our product? And the product is the basketball and the rivalry aspect of this. And I've said before, Angel Reese is Bill Laimbeer, Caitlin Clark is Michael Jordan. So again, the commissioner, I understand why she went the direction that she went, because if the only thing that she's talking about is, this really nasty stuff, which I do understand is important, is that the best way to promote the game? So she's trying to walk kind of a fine line here, and I'm sure that that's not easy to navigate, as she has found out from the response of the Players Association.
Well, like I said, Ricky, she had a perfect example of what happens when you go the other direction, and it didn't work out that well for the NBA. So kudos to her for being a smart businesswoman.
Well, the interview took place on a business network as well, so I'm sure that she viewed her role in being on that show. I would assume that she viewed her role to be about growing the business and growing the game.
Hey, OutKick fans on YouTube, if you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button and make your way over to OutKick.com where you can watch the full episode.